The first of these are the Fijar wars. The Fijar wars of the Quraysh. When the Prophet ﷺ was a teenager, probably around 18, 17, maybe even 15. We don't know for sure exactly because again nobody's recording dates. Between 15 to 18. When the Prophet ﷺ was a teenager, and most likely by the way closer to 15, because he didn't physically fight, he didn't participate. And this shows that he was not of that age that he would carry a sword. And they would usually allow a person to carry a sword at around 15. That's when he became what we call 18. In our days, that's being a man. In those days, they didn't have the luxury to wait till you're 18. 15, 14 is when you become a full adult. So the Fijar wars is a series of small battles that broke out between two large tribes of Arabia. And again, not to get too much into the Arab tribes of old, but we need to have a little bit of understanding. The tribe of Quraysh belongs to a much larger tribe. It's called a branch, not a tribe, of Kinana. Kinana is not the name of one tribe. Kinana is the name of many large tribes. Of them is Quraysh. And on another large branch of the Arab race was a tribe, or not a tribe, but a branch called Qais Aylan. Qais Aylan. Qais Aylan, it is composed of tribes such as Ghatafan, such as Hawazin. These are tribes that are going to come up in the seerah, right? Ghatafan, Hawazin, they belong to the larger branch of Qais Aylan. Quraysh and others, they belong to the larger branch of Kinana. To make a long story short, a person from the Kinana, which is one of the larger tribes of Quraysh. So Quraysh belongs to Kinana. A person from Kinana killed somebody from the Hawazin. And when they found out, the Hawazin attacked the Kinanite tribes, and Quraysh is one of them. This is what Jahiliyyah is. You kill one of mine, I'm going to go kill one of yours. So the tribes of Kinana, including the Quraysh, they rushed back into the Haram. What is the Haram? The holy sanctuary of Mecca, right? And the outlying lands. Why did they do this? Because the rule of law, which is still a rule of law in our religion, when you enter the Haram, what happens? وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ Amina. Whoever enters the Haram, you are safe. So they rushed back into the Haram. Hawazin followed them, and because they were so angry, so incensed, they didn't care about the Haram, and they attacked the Kinana. Now, this is interesting here. The initial fault was that of the side of the Quraysh. But the rebuttal was much more severe, because killing one person outside the Haram is a crime. Attacking the sanctity of the Haram is a much bigger crime. Much bigger crime. And therefore, the Quraysh declared all-out war against Hawazin and against the Qais Ajlan. You guys understanding this point here, right? Both sides are at fault. The initial fault was done by the Qurayshi side. Not somebody from Quraysh, but from Kinana, the larger sub-tribe. The initial fault. Then the other tribe attacks Mecca, and they break the Haram sanctity. Now the Quraysh are incensed. You have broken the sanctity of the Haram, we're going to attack you. And so all-out war broke out. This is called the Wars of Fijar. And initially, the opposing side was winning and the Quraysh was losing. Eventually the Quraysh won over, and then a peace treaty was enacted. Fighting was limited. Finally a peace treaty was enacted, and the Quraysh agreed to pay the blood money, and so the fighting stopped. The Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith when he's much older, he says, I remember participating in the Fijar wars. Why is it called Fijar wars? Fijar means evil. Fujur, fajr, evil. Evil wars. Why? Because both sides committed evil, but especially because the sanctity of the Haram was broken, which is the height of evil. These are evil wars, Fijar wars, because the sanctity of the Haram was broken. So the Prophet ﷺ said, I remember fighting in the wars of Fijar, and I would collect arrows for my uncles and hand them back to my uncles. Now what does this mean? So arrows are weapons you can use back and forth. When somebody shoots an arrow and it misses the target, in fact, even if it hits the target, you can take it out or you can pick it up, and then you can use it back against the enemies. It's an ammunition that you can use over and over again, correct? So, the Prophet ﷺ's job was to go find those arrows, and to go look for those arrows in the mountains. When he found them, he would go and return them to his uncles, and they would then use them against the other tribe. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I do not regret participating in that war. I participated and I do not regret it. It's nothing wrong that I did. That I helped the Quraysh against their enemies of the Qais Ailan. Also, it is narrated that whenever the Prophet ﷺ would appear with the Quraysh, on that day, the Quraysh would win over. Whenever he would not be at home, the Quraysh would lose ground. And so when Abu Talib saw this, he said, by Allah, you're not going to leave my sight anymore, you're going to stay with us. And eventually they reached a peace treaty and the fighting stopped after that.